everyone, this is Kelly and I am here to take a look at MJ Cullinane, hopefully I'm saying that correctly, her new deck. So I am obviously a fan. I have the mass market Crow Tarot that I use all of the time. This stays out on my altar space and I use it as my general, almost like a pip deck for all of my earthy oracle decks that I use for ancestor readings, web readings, just anything with the sort of my earthier decks, which are the most used parts of my decks. This is a deck that I use. So I am a huge fan of the Crow Tarot. I also have the Crow Oracle, the Urban Crow Oracle, and I love this. I have not used it as much as this one because I've had this longer and I just use it a lot. But this is something that has been well used by me and that again I also love. I had already had this when this came out, so it was a bit of a no-brainer that I was going to pick up the Urban Crow Oracle. I also think in some ways this would be interesting to go with this one. There are quite a few crows in here, and having sort of the this is obviously more urban, but it kind of shows the crossover between the liminal space of the Fae and into the human realm. That could be interesting. We'll see after we pull the deck out. This is the Guardian of the Night Tarot, I'm sorry, that I want to say is probably the last deck that I purchased from her, but don't quote me on it. I really love this deck. I will admit that I use this a lot as an oracle deck just for the animals because I love it so much. That is not to say that it doesn't function as a tarot, because it actually does function as a tarot really well. But I just happen to use it a lot as an oracle because it's 78 animal cards, so I do find it to be really useful as an oracle too, so it's kind of a 2-for-1 in terms of that. So she has other decks. I believe she has a cat deck maybe and a dog deck, something like that. Like those types of decks aren't really probably the only single animal I would get is a Crow Tarot and Oracle. I don't know, if there was a bear or tarot and a bear oracle, I might get that, and probably a wolf, right? Because those are my three guardians, so I probably would there. But most of the case, I do tend to like animal, a lot of different animals in them. But dogs and cats just aren't. I have a dog and I love my dog, but I'm not like I'm a dog person or I'm a cat person. So those aren't decks that I would necessarily get. So nothing wrong with them. They're just not the type I would lean into. So I'm to the point, I use these and love these decks so much that I am to that point where I've already purchased. I know what I get, what I get when I purchase from her. And so I'm to that space in which if a deck comes out of hers that piques my interest, I'm pretty much on board right away. You know how that is, like when you've already worked with or purchased from a creator and you really know what you're getting out of it. You're often watching her make her decks as she does. She shares them on social media, and so you're often going along for the ride on that. And so she's kind of started to be that no-brainer for me, as long as the theme is something that I'm remotely interested in. So when she started putting images up of this, I was immediately, my interest was piqued and I was immediately very excited. What we're going to be looking at today is her newest deck, which I have heard her pronounce as Förhäxa. I think I've heard other people pronounce it as Förhäxa as well. This is a Swedish word. I am 1/3 Swedish, and sadly that genetic Swedishness has not given me the ability to naturally speak Swedish. So I did look it up just to see how it would be pronounced in Swedish, and the one site that I found has it more as Förhäxa. Förhäxa, instead of ha, more of a hey sound, but don't take my word for it. If you are Swedish and speak Swedish, please let us know in the description box. But I did double check and look up some of the videos on the creator's Facebook, and she does pronounce it Förhäxa. So, you know. Now, Förhäxa or Förhäxa, whichever it may be, is a term that means to bewitch or enchant, that kind of idea of magic and enchantment and bewitching energy to it, which is also, you know, something that's going to catch my attention. I will say that you know, the initial information that was coming out by, I don't know exactly what I did see, but you know, really had this linked to Nordic folklore, right? Now, I will say that there is not anything in the guidebook relating to Nordic folklore. So that some of that was obviously my taking probably a few bits of information here and there and thinking, oh my goodness, not only is it in Swedish, you know, a strong part of my heritage, the name of the deck, but it's also focused on Nordic folklore. We don't actually have a lot of, and I would argue maybe any really good, like Nordic, of easily available Nordic tarot, Nordic folklore tarot decks. Like, this is really exciting, and so I was anticipating, and there were a couple cards on the website, like the Hierophant is associated with, or she was inspired by Yggdrasil. Tower card was inspired by Ragnarok, and so there were a couple of those noted on the website, and so you know, I just got a little excited and had some expectations that there would be more of that, where there might have been Nordic folklore inspiration, that being noted in the book. But that's not the case here. This is really its own world. She has drawn a deck in the world of Förhäxa, and created for her a world that exists called Förhäxa. And in this case, I'm going to use her pronunciation because this is her world, right? And we'll see what is the correct way to pronounce the word in Swedish. But her world that she's created here is really powerful in and of its own right. So I did have a little bit of disappointment looking at the guidebook that it didn't lean into where those specific folklore elements might have intersected. But letting that go, letting my own expectations go, I've really fallen in love with this deck. I have ordered, if you follow me on Instagram, while doing Embrace the Magical daily draws, I have been using this since I got it, I think on Saturday morning, and so I've been enjoying it for that. I also did a larger spread for myself with it, and found that to be really powerful. So I'm really excited about this as it is letting go of the Nordicness of it. What I do love about this, you know, I'll be honest with you, if you follow my channel enough, you know, I've worked with Fae energy since I was young, and it's something that's really important and integral to my practice. And there are very few decks that are fairy decks or Fae decks that really encapsulate how I see Fae energy, right? There is the John Bauer. That's folktale based, yes. But there is the Brian Froud two fairy oracles, the Heart of Fairy and Fairy Oracle. Those are the closest, I think, to seeing real fae that we can get in the deck world. This is my personal opinion. I also do love Tarot of the Hidden Realms for that liminal space, although that feels like you're in the Summerlands in that deck. Those two are really close. Other decks that are not intentionally depicting fae, like the Hush Tarot to me is an extremely fae deck. It situates itself in the liminal space, even though it isn't technically a fae deck. There's just not a lot of fae decks, and most of the time that work with me, most of the time if I see these kind of fae that we're seeing at the get-go with sort of fairy wings, more of the Victorian flower fairy craze, right, that was there, which I can appreciate, you know, in a small scatterings, even though to me it's just a, you know, nice whitewashing, right, of real fae energy to make it more palatable. But usually when I see decks that have like fairy wings, I tend to be like, okay, that's really cool, but it's not how I connect to fae energy, so I'll probably pass on that. This one, however, is extremely, extremely powerful feeling. We have in our family a fairy queen, and in our family history and lore, and one of the things that I say to my daughters and my daughter and my nieces, when life is getting rough, it's our saying, you know, is, you know, you're the stuff of fairy queens. Like, stand up, be strong, be proud, be powerful, right? Because you're the stuff of fairy queens, and it's really empowering. It sounds cute and it sounds cheesy, but it's actually super empowering. And so, I'm saying all this, you know, because I don't do anything short. If you're here for a short walkthrough, this is not it. Just heads up, look at the timestamp. So it's a blend of that component with a component of, I have a very old, what I would consider primal ancestor, a female, who is very prominent in my ancestral practice. And I've been on the hunt for decks that feel like her energy, which is very strong, very forceful, very powerful, a bit no nonsense, a bit warrior, stand in the seat of your own power, no, don't mess around kind of energy, and a little bit otherness, right? I think definitely some fae connection there. So that I've not yet. I have an oracle deck that I kind of use, but it's not like it's not a perfect fit, but it's close. And this, since pulling some cards from this, some of this feels like that. So this does feel like, in some ways, that ancestral story, through the story of the fairy queen, through this particular ancestress, guardian energy, that this is the space in which this would hold. So that, of course, makes me very excited and means absolutely nothing to you coming to see a walkthrough of this deck. So let's take a look at it. As all of her decks, I think she gets her decks, other than this deck, which is the mass market. So this is a US Games deck, the Crow Tarot. But her other decks, I believe, are all printed at the same place, I think, Shuffled Ink. And so they all come in the same boxes, same similar cardstock. And I actually quite like the cardstock. It's kind of a good box. It's not super fancy. It's got the printing on the outside. You don't have anything really going on the inside, but it's a sturdy box. Like, what else do we need from a box but to be sturdy and hold our cards? So here she has Journey Through the Magical Land of Förhäxa. That's Swedish for to enchant, cast a spell, and bedevil. This is a realm where dark and light collide, where the elements hold court, where we find ourselves connecting to a force outside of our own. Printed in the USA, and that's all that's on the back there. I do really love in this instance that the guidebook fits in here. Previously, like the Guardian of the Night Tarot was a separate guidebook. So we have that in the past, but I do like that this fits in the box and just kind of stays with the box, even though of course that means that I need to pull out my glasses to be able to read it. So we'll come there in a minute. Here is the backs, which I think are stunning. Like, I really love, I don't know what I have on the back of that. I really love this back. I think it's gorgeous. It's a gorgeous teal color with some, you know, these leaves and flower pattern, and these little bits of orange. It's just not a color you often see, and I love the combination of these colors. This back to me is perfect. I absolutely love it. This one is actually borderless. The Crow Tarot, or Crow Oracle, I'm sorry, not the Crow Tarot. The Crow Oracle is borderless, not was, it still is borderless. The Guardians of the Night has a border on them. And so I'm really glad to see that this is borderless. I think it looks really gorgeous. Again, I have a sneaking suspicion I might use these two together, but we're jumping the gun, not surprisingly. So let's set these aside for a second and take a look at the guidebook. So we can see that the outside is in color. You can tell I've been using this. Apparently I have stuff all over it. It's been sitting out. I haven't had time to do much other than pull cards. And then I did go through and read through, not every single word, but I did skim through most of the guidebook, because I was looking to see if there was indications where that kind of crossover with Nordic folklore was, and there truly, from what I can tell, unless I've just missed something, there isn't. Even like I said, the Hierophant she talks about on her website is being connected to Yggdrasil, or that inspired by, I should say, and she doesn't mention that here, nor with the tower. Oops, I went too far. I don't see anything there. It's much more basing. Here is this land that I've created, and here are these stories that are taking place in this Fey land, and the inspiration is there, but it is not it's not a one-to-one, or it's not a direct connection, more inspired by, and so that's what we have. It goes right, again, my one quibble, and these are really quick quibbles because this is her world, is it goes right into preparing the deck, how to use yes and no, which I've seen, I think, in other of her decks, some questions to ask, and then it goes right into the Fool card. So I really would have liked an introduction as to this world that she's created. Again, that connection to, or the inspiration, how this inspiration to Nordic folklore came about. Like, I would have loved to have seen some of that to lead us into this world that she has created. So I like to see things like that. That's my personal preference. I like to see, how did this develop? How did this come into the creator's mind? What is it that, caused them to go down this route? That kind of stuff interests me more so than, the basic meanings of the cards. Not that these are basic meanings, because they're not, but you know what I mean. So it dives us right in, and what I do love about this, so that's the quibbles aside, and again, some of that was my own built-up expectations, that, you know, I have to check those things. Whenever you pre-order something, you kind of build things up in your head. But what I do really like is that these first paragraphs, especially, is that it walks you through the story of the card, and what it felt like for the creator to meet. Especially, I'll read the High Priestess when we get there. And so mostly this first paragraph is speaking to what is the story we're seeing in the card, and then there tends to be a paragraph or so that's kind of like, okay, if you've gotten this card, this is how you can interpret this. Seems to be the general usage. A couple changes to the keywords. The Emperor is the Council of Monarchs. This is an all-female deck. Well, all-female fae deck, I should say, but they're all females that I can tell in here. I don't think there's any males in this world at all, but we'll, you know, I haven't, you know, really gone through looking for that, but I'm 99% sure this is all female. And so the Emperor has been changed to the Council of Monarchs, which I actually really like. We'll read that when we get to it. And then there is also the minors are by their elements, not by cups or swords, which I really like. I like that in decks, so I'm happy to see that. And then in the court system, we have pages, we have knights, we have queens, and then we have elders. So instead of a king with a male figure on it, we have a female elder, which I also like, especially, again, given how I see myself using this, which is for my you know, really connection with female ancestral guardianship. That works perfectly fine for me. That may not, you know, I don't generally like all female decks or all male decks. I don't generally like single gender decks, but this one I feel is like, again, this is going to just really highlight that and work well for where I think I would use this. But obviously for you, your mileage may vary. So that is what we have. So it just goes through obviously all of the cards. You have about a page, you have a page, not about, I think, well, some of them cross over, but you have about a page on average of cards or information on each one of the cards, and then that's the end of the guidebook. So I would have loved, again, a little bit more just in terms of that and just a lead up into this world, but I think that she's telling us and introducing us to this world through each one of the cards and the stories, and we will get to know that world organically through following the story. And so that's actually not a bad thing, right? So those things that were like, oh, I would have liked it to be this way, well, there can be a reason for that, and you know, I need to just experience it how she wanted to have us experience it. So obviously we start out with the Fool, and so I'm going to read this one just so you can get a feel for the first entry into this and get an idea of what we'll get with the guidebook. My Förhäxa journey began with an encounter of a young and diminutive fairy perched on top of a beehive. The buzzing of the bees below did not faze this oblivious creature as it reached down to scoop up a handful of pure honey. The fairy seemed right at home, although the bees may have disagreed. They didn't seem too bothered by this fairy's presence. The world was wide open for this young spirit to explore. The trees were all there for her to climb, the air was free to float through, and the honey was there for the taking. Why wouldn't it be? This fairy saw the world for all its possibilities, and just the notion of holding back or not trying an idea that popped into its head was something this developing creature couldn't comprehend. The Fool asks that you quiet that voice inside that prevents you from trying something or doing something new or out of bounds. When this fairy appears in a reading, she may be holding back out of fear, you may be holding it back out of fear, or your adult mind is blocking you from seeing all the possibilities. She asks that you relax on the rules a bit When you allow yourself to go with the flow, let your impulses lead the way. You too may discover the sweet side of life. Beware, however, at times this fairy tends to be a bit impish and can find itself in a heap of trouble due to pushing the boundaries too far. This energy may also arrive with a warning not to get stung. So there's definitely danger here. There's not a cliff that she's going to fall off. She has wings. That wouldn't be a problem, right? But she is in a place that is technically not where she's supposed to be, just like we really shouldn't be on the edge of a cliff, and she could get swarmed or stung in the process. So I think that this embodies the Fool quite well. So here we have the Fool. The second card, of course, is the Magician. And so we have, again, all of these cards are female. I love that the sword is just kind of propped on her back shoulder, but then fire is coming out of her hand. We do have a cup as well, and we have the melting snow, the snow itself being that northern energy, and the melting away. We can see some of that's melting with her fire, which is creating water, which is creating the new bulbs and flowers to come through. So we definitely have this feeling of somebody controlling their world in a powerful way, which speaks to the Magician. You can also see that there are different kinds of fae here and different kinds of wings. This is definitely more of a pixie sprite with more butterfly style wings, but then there are these really powerful feathered wings as well that make you think more like the Morrigan or those types of angels, but like in a powerful sense of wings. That I think are really good. I like to see that in the deck. You do get different types here that works quite beautifully. More often, I think, than not. You also get bat wings too, which I like, because they're, bats are the only mammals that can fly, and so I am quite enamored of them. So yeah, that's the Magician. Next we have the High Priestess. I did like what she wrote here when I first met this enchanter. My first feeling was being scared and feeling exposed. With enormous bat wings and eyes that could see into the depths of my soul, I knew that there would be no way of concealing anything from the High Priestess. So this is one of the things that I really enjoy this, right? Because you really experience these first paragraphs as if you're seeing through her eyes as she first entered into this world, and this is what she saw, and this was her reaction to it. I really like that aspect, because I do in this way feel as if we are taking a walk with her in this world and meeting these people and getting her reactions to them, and then we are able to react to them as well in looking at the images that she has created. I love the moon phases at the bottom. I like that her foot is in the water that's at her feet. We don't have the towers on either side, but I like that there are the two trees there. Generally, her decks tend to be Rider-Waite-Smith based, but then she kind of usually does different things, which I really appreciate. The Crow Tarot is very Rider-Waite-Smith based, but for some reason, the way that it's depicted and the fact that it's just the crows and something about the collage work that she does allows it to just be a pip deck for me, and I just can ignore the Rider-Waite-Smith meanings because I don't read that way strictly. So I do feel like she continues that here, where yes, you can most definitely see the Rider-Waite-Smith basis, but then she kind of goes off and does things differently in this world, and I really enjoy that. But here we have, very recognizable High Priestess that separates her out from the beautiful Empress here. So we definitely have abundance with the rabbit, so we definitely have an overarching or overflowing garden here that's quite beautiful. We do have that feeling of pregnancy with the hand over the belly. I know not everybody loves that in Empresses, but I don't mind that. This is definitely a Mother Earth kind kind of a empress, not that powerful ruler. You get that a little bit more here, but this makes sense when you get to the next card, because what would have been the emperor is what rules Förhäxa, which is this council of monarchs. And I really love the kind of veiled look with the paint over the eyes. I love the 4 elements, so the elements rule the world, and then of course we have the 4 element suits based off their elemental names. So she doesn't really need to be the ruling empress, because the ruling of this world is done by the Council of Monarchs. So let's read this one. To create balance as well as accountability, the Council of Monarchs was formed. Whereas the Empress provided all of the love and nourishment any living creature could desire, the Council of Monarchs is there to ensure stability. If there should so happen to be conflict in the land that was not easily remedied through other means, it is brought before the Council of Monarchs to decide. The Council consists of 4 equally powerful entities representing the 4 elements, brings to the situation an uncontested authority. They are there to ensure without bias that the laws of Förhäxa in human terms. If the Empress is a divine feminine energy, the Council of Monarchs combined represent the divine masculine. Now, I absolutely love this card. So this is the Hierophant. And in this case, you know, we can oftentimes look to the person, or the fairy in this case, but we don't, as being the actual Hierophant. But in this case, that is not the case. The Hierophant is the tree, and we can see the layers, and we can see the roots, and we can even see some of the tangle of the branches coming down. I also love this sort of spirit animal that is here. It just is gorgeous. Tree energy is really important to my worldview. The idea of a world tree is really important to my worldview as well. And so this definitely works for how I see the world. And for me to have the Hierophant as a tree and as a world tree symbology is perfect. So yeah, absolutely love that. Here we have the Lovers card. This is harking back to older Lovers card. Obviously we have 3 females here, but it's still harking back to that idea of choice, because we have what, you know, you would think on first glance might be a trio of friends. It just could get a little bit confusing with the 3 of Cups, but in this deck, the 3 Cups, or the water suit, are mermaids, and so you know, would very quickly know that this was not that. And again, also, if you kind of hearken back again to older, where you would have Hercules having to make a decision between 2 fairies, this is a little bit more like that, that there is a bit of, we have 2 fairies, I think she talks about them being in a relationship, and there becomes a disagreement with the 3rd. I would, you know, for me, because this is a card about choice, this would be similar to the older style decks, where you have really a beautiful but more stately looking and a more youthful looking fae, and sort of, okay, what choice is she going to make, and what direction, and she has to make a good decision, because that's a long-term ramifications. So my story changes a little bit, but it works quite well in terms of the Lovers as choice, and kind of harking back to the older traditions with the Lovers card. I absolutely love this Chariot. You know, I don't often love I do not often love chariot cards, but a fae riding on a raven works. You know, this is my birth card, and I absolutely love this. We have a fairy riding on the back of a raven, flames billowing from its feathers as it screeched across the sky, it says. The force of this bird splits the sky in 2, and before my eyes the pair vanished, then triumphantly reappeared reappeared miles away. So they're getting ready to split the space and move between worlds, which ravens and crows are seen as being able to do. And so I really love that depiction of the chariot. I also absolutely love this Justice. Now, she does not have Justice in this order. I had to re-put things in order, and obviously I put it into the order in which I see the ordering being in, but that's not the order that's it comes in. So Justice is at, she doesn't have numbers on the cards, which is great. You don't have to, they don't have to be any of those things, but this would traditionally be where Justice is, but this is Rider-Waite-Smith, so there would have been a Strength card here. I just, again, put them back in the order that I see them. So, but I just think that this is really beautiful, because she's watching over two trees, it says. They are the trees of karma. The only way to pass is to choose a door. One door takes you to the other side of the tree where the trail continues. The other door leads to a path created by your past. Waiting for you on the other side of that door depends on what brought you to this point in the road. The fairy wields two large swords, will not let you just back up and turn around. No, you must face justice head on. So it's about, you know, much more to do about consequences, right? Which I think is interesting. I also find the concept of the two doors to be an interesting one to put with justice. So I find this really powerful, and I can see sort of working with this in a kind of a fresh layer to justice that I find quite fantastic. Here we have the Hermit, high on the mountains, the beautiful galaxy or stars above the mountains there, her feet in a mountain stream, and just kind of stepped away from it all, which I think is really beautiful. Of that stepping away, recentering and gaining wisdom. Here we have the Wheel of Fortune. Again, I do love like the hair. So a lot of times to watch for the hair, watch for clothing. Often are patterns, more like fabric patterns or wallpaper patterns versus just, you know, drawings of hair. It's something I like about things that she does. But here we have the Wheel of Fortune and the two fairies that control the great wheel. That says in the guidebook, they work together, turning it so that the daylight and the night sky share the day. Within the wheel are rings that connect to all the creatures of the land. Sometimes good fortune is on top, and sometimes, well, not so much. So it goes in and talks about how this wheel works in the land. You can really see the collage work that happens. Her art, as far best as I can explain it, is a mix of digital painting and collage work. While I'm not overly fond always of collage work, I really love the way that she does it. I love this Strength card. I love this Strength card. Can I say it again? I love this Strength card. Now, I also love dragons. There are dragons in here. It seems to be more on the line of possibly more of the frightening kind of dragons. I can see them differently though, especially in this one. This is a mermaid who's water, right? And you can see the waves here, but she is connecting to her inner dragon, the energy of her ancestors, because dragons for me are ancestral energy, and encapsulate both the energy of fire and the energy of water within herself, and that's where her strength comes from. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. I love it. Here we have the Hanged Man. She didn't change the name of this, which I'm kind of surprised because it's obviously not a hanged man. And she has changed other things, so you know, I would see her possibly changing that. to just the hanged or something like that. But dangling upside down below a layer of clouds from what looks like the shadow of a dragon is a fairy. Obviously we don't know how they get there, but she seems to be very calm and her arms are open, and she's just getting a fresh perspective. Now this again I like because it seems to be a cooperative relationship between the dragon and the fae, which is how I would see it. So I quite love this. Here we have Death, which I think is really powerful. I love that her face kind of has a skull-like appearance to it. We have sort of black flowers or roses of some kind that are really gorgeous. And she has her hand, I don't know if you can see this, but she has her hand on the face of a fox who she is kind of gently easing the fox into the other world, which I think again is really beautiful, powerful. I love the snow here. Everything about this I think is really gorgeous. Here we have Temperance, which is one that I have pulled for myself. There is a story of a force within the land of Förhäxa, the guidebook says, that controls and comforts the storms. With the lift of its arms, this creature guides torrents of rain down its back, transforming it into a peaceful stream of water that nourishes the ground without flooding or destruction. So it's dumping, and its body has become the alchemist's chalice, which I think is really powerful, right? It takes a great deal of power to combine the frenetic energy above with the calm energy of the earth for both to feel satisfied. Temperance arrives when storms form and when moderation helps you move forward without getting carried away by too much energy. I think that's really beautiful. Really beautiful image. I got to sit with that for a while, and I really love this idea of combining the energies of the storm within and releasing it more calm and of service to the earth below. Really above and below kind of feel to it that you don't often see with temperance cards, which I really love. Here we have the devil, who is clearly collecting fairy wings. You can see, I don't know if you can see this, but one side of, if we covered this up, she would really just look like a beautiful, I would say kind of a mer creature. So she's probably like a siren calling the fairies to her. But then we can see her real side is far more frightening there. And so they are falling to the siren's call and abdicating their power in the form of their wings, which I quite love. Here we have the Tower, which again, she noted in her, somewhere on her website, that she was inspired by Ragnarok, the idea of Ragnarok with Tower, the Tower card. So it says on the guidebook, there was once a time when Förhäxa looked very differently. Instead of a countryside dotted with lakes and lush foliage, the creatures fought over the little resources the land offered. Wars broke out, and the spirits within the earth grew increasingly unhappy. Over time, the heart of the earth grew angrier as emotions bubbled up until it could not hold back. With a massive eruption out from the earth, the tower rose, bringing flames that burned down the land and caused enormous tidal waves of destruction. The earth as it was and all of its inhabitants were gone. All the plants, all that remained was dirt and water. Life began to grow again in time, and a fresh beginning was with a hope for a better tomorrow emerge. So it's almost like, I don't know if you've ever read the books, the Elfstones of Shannara or any of the Shannara Chronicles by Terry Brooks, but there is this, you know, seeing the world full of magic or well, really we see the magic having gone, but there's been several kind of cataclysms that have gone on in that, and we kind of stumble sometimes on old ruined cities and things, and that this gives us, centers the world of Förhäxa in potentially be post-apocalyptic time in which life is now sort of reborn again into this magical space, which is awesome. Here we have the star, which is really beautiful. Of course, after the destruction, things start to grow back again, and things in life begins to emerge, and we start to find our way forward. I think this moon card is so beautiful. I really love it. I love that this is a night of a full moon. We can see this shining in here. What's interesting, that there is a bit of a push and a pull. You have this beautiful energy here with what we can see in the reflection. In my opinion, I haven't read this fully, so I'll read it in a second. But I think we have death here, right? So she's looking into, if you look at the faces, so let's go like this. I'm pretty sure that that is death, so she's seeing in her reflection, death in her reflection. We also do have some energy flying all around. We have some magical energy, but we also have some shadows here. And so we can really see how complicated is the energy of the moon, but also how powerful. I just really love it. Most of these images, I feel like, let you think about the cards in just a slightly different way that I think can really evolve the more that you're working with it and more that you see those cards come up in a reading, which I think is really powerful when that happens. And the sun I also got in a reading for myself, and I find this so amazing. I love this powerful kind of goddess energy that is above, controlling the sun, controlling the clouds, letting the sun through and sheltering what needs to be sheltered from the hot rays of the sun. I just find this to be an extremely powerful sun. I don't often love suns because they often have babies in them, and I do see the sun as a very powerful card of mastering our own power, and that being the source of happiness. And so to have a strong and powerful sun is important to me, and this meets the ticket completely. It's one of my favorites, if not possibly my favorite sun card. I also love this Judgment card. I love the rebirth that's happening here. We can see the arrows having fallen. We can see the Fae here. It's really interesting to see this beautiful rising, but with a Fae creature. We don't often see it like that, and I think it is gorgeous. It talks about how when it's time for a fairy to leave the land of Förhäxa, it presents itself, its life and actions. It really does talk about, you know, that idea of looking at their life and what they've contributed. The elders place the fairy in the water on a bed of flowers where it drifts peacefully out to sea. There is music and celebration from the shore as arrows from the flame of eternal life streak across the night sky. The element of fire creates life and rebirth, and it is on the tip of the flame that the fairy travels into the next realm. Okay, that's awesome. I love it. Absolutely love that. And then here we have the World card. I love, you know, obviously I can't help but think about Tangled with this, and that scene in Tangled when all of those are going up just makes me cry every time. These sort of lanterns used in remembrance also is something that just a couple of my close family members and I did for my son. I think his first year death anniversary. And so there is a sort of a collective feel about everything kind of coming together and honoring what has come before moving into a next phase. I think is really powerful here. So that's the major arcana. Again, I think it's quite gorgeous. I really like some of the different takes that she has done. I really love the way that she wove the story of her meeting of these powerful energies in the land that I think is just gorgeous. I think she's done an amazing job. So that brings us to the elemental suit. So I haven't done this in a while, but let's zoom out a little bit here and just peek at the aces. So here we have the Ace of Fire, the Ace of Water, the Ace of Air, and the Ace of Earth. Let's get these where you can actually see them. Interesting fire one. I definitely want to read that. The water is gorgeous with the mermaids. We have a very earth fairy sprite energy here, where she looks like she's actually down in the earth itself and helping to have things grow from under upwards. And probably one of the most powerful Ace of Swords or Air that I've seen, and I think it's absolutely gorgeous. So very active in their energies, right? Bringing fire and lighting up the darkness. Ace of Water bringing water to quench the earth. Air powerfully controlling the air and communicating with the dragons. Powerful creatures of air, and then being literally under the earth. And she may not be, I'm not saying that's what she is, but I think she is. For me, she is under the earth, and we can actually see her coaxing the new sprouts upward. And I just think these are really active and powerful. They're not passive aces, and I think of aces along the same lines as major arcana in terms of power level, and I feel like these aces actually embody that quite well. So I wanted to kind of point that out there. So let's come back and zoom it in, and we'll come back over here because I do want to take a peek at this, because I don't know if I've read this one. The moment was right, the veil between the worlds was thin, and for the brave and a few crows, a new experience awaited. With the Ace of Fire in hand, the adventuresome fairy felt full of courage and confidence. Oh, she's stepping between worlds into our world. Oh, I do really love that. The power of fire to transform. Love it. Love it. Okay. Let me try to make a little bit of a thing here. Here we have the Two of Fire. The fairy stood looking outward at the space where the worlds of the land overlap. Look at that. And look, there's a mandorla in the middle. Oh, I love this. So here you can see the cities of our world. You can see Fae, because Fae is just, it's liminal space, right? It's stepping left or right from our world. And crows, of course, cross those boundaries. And so having her sort of entering, of course, now I have them all out of whack. Having her kind of separating and making a doorway between the two worlds in the Two of Fire, and commanding that fire is so powerful, especially with the mandorla in between. I absolutely love it. Love it and love it. Here we have the Three of Fire. Again, so powerful, because it's the building up of fire. It's the working with the energy that's there. And I love that. I'm not a big fan of traditional Rider-Waite-Smith, where the Three of Wands, you're just standing there waiting for your ships to come in. She's not standing and waiting for anything. She is manifesting and working with the energies to open this portal, and seeing all of the energies moving, but she's holding the door open. It's a very powerful 3 of fire. I love it. Here we have the celebrating what is happening now with this new birth that's happening here. Quite a Rider-Waite-Smith feel to this one, but it works well. Here we have the 5 of fire with a battle going on with snakes. The fairy full of inspiration got right to work. Of course, it didn't take long before some hot-headed inhabitants. So you definitely have some discordant energy in the power of 5 that we often will see with the battle or the competition for this ground or this area, this part of the garden to be. But she's not backing down. She's fully engaged. Here we have the beautiful 6 of fire. A fairy in control of its power can transform any dull and lifeless garden into a vibrant testimony of what one can achieve. We see this overwhelming success of the 6 of fire. The discordant energy has been tamed, and we have this achieving of this gorgeous garden here. I love, again, the use of sort of textures and patterns to create the clothing here. Here we have the 7 of fire come in with fairy on a rose bush, as I'm reading what she's saying here. Again, I really like that, you know, she centers you in what it is we're seeing, so that if you're looking at this and you're like, okay, clearly she's standing her ground against a bunch of foes here. We understand that she's fending off the shadows. She calls them shadowy gremlins here. But if you weren't sure, like, you're like, okay, well, what's happening? She does really position you on what is going on, and then also how you would interpret that in regards to your reading if you were needing that energy. Here we have the 8 of fire. Now, I'm not usually a fan of Rider-Waite-Smith's 8 of fire because 8s are solid energy and really focused and mastered energy, and so the you know, just the arrows flying by don't usually do it for me. This feels very strong. She looks masterful. She has mastered her power, and she is honing in and focusing in with the aids of these powerful birds. I don't know if it says what kind of birds they are, but that to me works really well for the 8 of fire. Here we have the 9 of fire here. She is tattered and travel worn, it says. It saw what appeared to be eyes glaring menacingly through the branches. You can see all of this, but she is holding the line. She has got her bow notched, or her arrow notched, and she is ready to face what needs to be faced with this 9 of fire. And then we have the 10 of fire, where she has a great burden on her back. She is down, but she is not beaten, right? She will continue to crawl her way forward, I feel. Now, I don't know if this is the case here. The dragons of Förhäxa often bury their eggs in areas that are easily accessible to the fairies. It is said they do this because they know the fairies will move the eggs into spaces too small for other dragons to fit in and protect them from potential threats. The task of gathering and relocating dragon eggs is not a job for the weak or uncommitted. So yeah, we have this very strong fairy who is carefully carrying dragon's eggs to be protected. So I quite like that. There is a burden there, but she's doing what she has to do and getting it done. So one of the things about this, the quartz, is you can see there is like a border here on the quartz, and they are all the same. So what I mean is that all of the pages are this kind of glowing energy, kind of orangey tone here, kind of the tone on the, a little bit like on the back, but this orangey tone on the pages. The knights are all this kind of turquoisey color here. The queens are all of this purple color, and then the elders are all of this sort of black and white border along the edges here. So I find the purple to be slightly jarring because I don't feel like that color like really stands out and pops. but at the same time, there is a lot of purple in the deck, so I don't think that that's the case. So they're, all of the court cards are like this, so they'll really stand out as being the courts, which I think is great. So again, here obviously we have the Page of Fire, which I think is amazing. You see a young girl fairy who is practicing and learning her skill. We have the Knight of Fire, who is actively working with a fire snake here. We have, I love this Queen of Fire. She reminds me of like Maleficent. I don't know if you've watched the new Maleficent with Angelina Jolie. The second one was okay, but the first one was really good. And this reminds me of this like powerful queen energy here. And I love the lightning bug. And then we have all of the elders do, if you get in on their faces, they do look older than the queens. And so you have the powerful elder. I love all of the eyes on her dress as well. So that is the suit of fire. We next have the suit of water, which is mermaids, which I love. So here we talked about the ace here. Here we have the two of water coming together, and that kind of feeling of hand fasting there, and their tails are clasped as well, which is really beautiful. Here we have the three of water, a traditional, you know, celebratory, hanging out together. There is a growth of energy as people are coming together. Here we have the four of water. Here we have the five of water. I do love these, almost like we can see the shadows or like the ghosts of family or friends gone by that she might be missing. I haven't read through here to see the story, but you know, I like to also tell my own story to myself with what I see. Yeah, so it does tell a story of a young fairy who fell very much in love with a mermaid. To prove her love, she removed her wings and ate from the plant, which I think we see in another card, ate from the plant to solidify the transformations. Things were good for a while, but the mermaid soon fell out of attraction and met another, now alone in the world that is not her own. Oh, so she's especially sad because this isn't her world. This isn't where she comes from. And so she really does feel that loss of what she had before, as well as, but if she turns around, it looks like she's going to could have an opportunity that could be able to comfort her once she turns. So that's a sad one. Yeah, I feel like one of these cards we're going to see her transforming. I can't remember which one it is. I think it's the Eight of Water. So that's the Five of Water. Such a sweet Six of Water. I love, again, the rabbits brought in here, the little baby mermaid. Love the flowers in her hair. Very Rapunzel-like. It's gorgeous. All of the greenery. It's just a beautiful card for the Six of Cups. Beautiful Seven of Water. I absolutely love this as well. Yeah, it's beautiful. The whole suit, this is just gorgeous. I really love the water suit here. So here we have the girl. She has taken off her wings. She's removed her wings. And she is starting the transformation to turn. She's eaten some water plants that are going to turn her into a mermaid to be with the one that she loves. But you can also just see this as being willing to cut off your wings to go on a journey that is into the depths, literally, with the water. Here we have the Nine of Water, wish fulfillment. She's got all the pearls. She's got all of the apples. She's got everything. She's got kind of Venus feel here in the shell. She is in that space of abundance, of getting what she wishes. I wonder if they're gonna. Let me go back here for a minute. I wonder if this talks about the girl. 9. The mermaid delighted in her cleverness as perfectly sweet and ramp. Oh, they're all here. Found one perfect spot in the land to make her home where all the abundance came. Nope, this is just a wish fulfillment of somebody else. Okay. then here we have a beautiful 10 of water. Everything is as it is. It's the happily ever after. They're all and what's interesting is that this is a sister who had left the land to become a mermaid, and she's now reunited with her sisters, and they can connect, and they can have healing happen between all of them, so she is no longer alone. So we see that culmination there in the story. So here we have the page. Again, you can see that outer band, the outer frame. We have the Knight of Water. Interesting with this musical instrument. I'm assuming that's what it is. Creating haunting melodies that seem to dance across the horizon line, captivating all those in their wake. So again, very active, but not necessarily riding a horse, which is fine. They're action oriented though, and I love that. Here we have the beautiful Queen of Water. Again, the purple boundary here. And then we have the Elder of Water upright on her throne. I love the kind of magical key symbols up here. It looks quite powerful. Again, a lot of the eye symbology. I don't see that in her. But remember the Elder of Fire, we saw that in her skirt. Yeah, we do see Thor's hammer overhead, but we have the eyes in the skirt, and here we have an eye in the water area as well. So I'm going to leave those out so I can check the other elders, because I loved seeing things like that. Okay, so this is one of my favorite two of airs, can we just say, but let's come back here. Here we go to the Ace of Air. So here we have the beautiful Ace of Air that we talked about. Again, so powerful. I love her white feathers. I love her sword, but I also love the power through her hand. And she's either working with the dragons or fighting off demonic dragons, whichever way you wish to take it. There. But look at this Two of Air, standing on the edge of the cliff just high enough where the clouds hover at her feet, unable to see the land below. The fairy becomes increasingly uncertain of its position. Sensing apprehension, the shadowy crows that reside within make their way out and hold the fairy in place. They have but one job, to protect the fairy from itself and perhaps others. They are there not on their own, but at the fairy's request, and until it releases them from their situation, it will remain, keeping the fairy in place and not letting anyone come close. So she's kind of in a stasis. She's got to bring her head and her heart together and realize you've got wings. Don't worry about it. Just step forward. Very sad Three of Air. I was really worried about the Three of Air. You know how I feel about the Three of Swords. This is, yes, we learn from difficult things, but it's not for me about heartache or loss, because the heartbreak is the Five of Cups. Now, what I like here is this, to me, is not a story of heartbreak. I mean, obviously she's heartbroken because her wings have been cut off, it looks like. But this is a situation in which she's in a very difficult position, but she is not entirely beaten, and that she's going to learn and come out, I am sure, stronger for this as we go along. And I thought she does a great job of reading through it itself. But for me, image-wise, you know, again, not my favorite. It's a very dark Three of Air. I just like to see growth that comes, and I wish she was larger, because this, you know, overpowers, is powerful. With the one with the knife is quite powerful looking in this, versus the strength of her. Yes, she's lost her wings, but she is going to continue to go forward. She's reaching upward. She is going to grow from this. She's going to stand up and become quite powerful, I believe. But it's definitely a complicated Three of Air. Four of Air here in Rest. Quite light compared to this. I would have liked to have seen maybe her resting to be able to recuperate. It's kind of a jarring Four of Air after the Three of Air, but obviously we don't generally see them in readings one after another, but I do think it's quite beautiful. So this is the Five of Air. It's not my favorite of all of the cards, but I understand from reading the story that we have two flower fairies that were in sort of competition, and so one of them used a sneaky way of calling to the dragons and saying, look, she's stolen one of your eggs, using a flower that looked kind of like a dragon egg to get the other one sort of hauled off. And so you see that idea of discordant. I do like that idea of the use of the voice in a negative way or in a discordant way, which I think goes well with the Five of Swords. But definitely has that, okay, you're willing to win, but at what cost? And is she going to now tell the dragons and they're going to come back then and eat her? You know, it could happen. And so, you know, being careful about winning at any cost, because that could turn around and bite you, it also, you know, pulls in. This is really beautiful, Six of Air. I mean, absolutely stunning. Moving to the, you know, to the horizon. They're coming out of the dark and towards that where the sun is coming up is just beautiful. Here we have the Seven of Air. Clearly we have the Council of Monarchs here. They have these beautiful golden crow feathers, and we certainly see what appears to be somebody up to no good, having taken the Seven Swords. But, you know, for me, the Seven of Swords is about, there's more going on than meets the eye. And there may be a reason if we don't know what's happening. And so for me, the Seven of Swords is figure out what's happening. Don't just take the snapshot of a moment and think that you know what's happening. There is more going on beneath the surface. Beautiful Eight of Air. I think this is gorgeous. These are spider webs, and even their final, her wings are out and their final things of winding are quite thin. She is able to get herself out of the situation if she trusts herself. Nine of Air. She has definitely got some problems on her hand that she's concerned about. And so we, you know, that's pretty typical for the Nine of Swords. I actually really like this Ten of Swords. I'm assuming this is the girl who's lost her sword. She also has like nails in her hand. Like this is definitely, a Ten of Swords in the Rider-Waite-Smith tradition, but there's so much going on here that I find interesting because she has sort of relaxed into the situation. She's not struggling against it. She also does not look to be dead, and I think she's just recouping her energy, and she's going to stand up and continue forward. And it does talk about, I did read through this briefly, and it does talk about how the fact that she is not dead. And so there is this idea that's a little bit different than a traditional Rider-Waite-Smith with just a dead person with a bunch of swords in them. She has lost some of her power with her wings being here, but and that powerful bloody hand there is also quite interesting. So I don't know what I'm going to do with this 100%, but I don't mind it. I like her sort of feeling like she just needs to recoup. And I really do feel like she is going to stand up and become quite powerful. I'll be interested to see if one of these has, yes, like there's a Knight of Swords has red hair. She does not. The Elder does not, but I can see her as going to go into and become active in her energy maybe. Anyways, here we have the Page working with her energy. We have the Knight with the Bird of Prey. We have a Queen Bee with, this one took me aback. You know, I love the Queen of Swords very, very much. And for me, the Queen of Swords, you know, this feels like the Queen of Swords to me, but I'll take it as an ace embodying the power of the whole suit. So I did think it was interesting to have the Queen of Bees as the Queen of Swords, but they have stingers on them. It makes perfect sense. So I think it's cool. I love the Elder of Air. I think she is amazing. So absolutely love that. And then that brings us to the Earth suit. So here we have, let's just peek. I know this is very, very long as per usual, but this is me, you know, processing through. Oh wait, let's go back here. Do we see eyes anywhere? I guess you can kind of see eyes on her shirt, but that could just be me seeing what I want to see. I don't know. I think that there is eyes on her shirt. And we had eyes on the dress, and then we had a couple eyes down in the water. We'll see in the last one if that holds true, whether I'm just making things up in the third one. Ace of Earth. Here we have the Two of Earth. She's got so much to juggle that she has 6 arms, doing everything that needs to be done, and she might need to put some things down. Here we have the Three of Earth, that sort of working together energy. Beautiful Four of Earth. I love this. She does not look greedy. She looks like this is a time to hold your seeds close. Winter is not yet quite over. I think this is gorgeous. I love it. I also love this Five of Earth. There is this disconnection, but the pack is right around her. I know that's probably not supposed to be positive, but to me it is. So I actually think this is really powerful. Feeling of disconnection, but also that hope of going towards the wolves and going back into the pack as well. Here we have the Six of Earth. Not my favorite image. I thought maybe it was a little bit distorted looking here, but I think that that's just how it's supposed to be. But I do like the water coming out of her hand and the raven drinking of the water, and so you definitely have that reciprocity, right? We have the flowers that are feeding the hummingbirds. We have the weather that's raining and feeding down to her, helping to feed the crow. So you do have this sense of symbiosis between the whole world that I think works really well for the Six of Earth. Here we have the Seven of Earth, having patience. I do like the positive snake here. Everybody, again, not a Garden of Eden reproduction that we often get, so I quite like that. Love this Eight of Earth. Most collage-y, I think, looking of all of the, oh, they all have a bit of, I mean, that's what she does, is collage. But I quite like that, the look of this. And the 8 is the idea of mastery and all of the roots and all of the flowers, and you have the bees doing what they're supposed to be doing, and everything just does seem to be very solid and strong in the garden. Here we have the Nine of Earth, which is really beautiful. Again, here we have what I'm guessing is an old fox, but it could be something else entirely. Fairy of the Nine of Earth was glamorous. It had a golden aura all around her. Alone in the woods. Yep, wolf's head. Sorry, it's on a wolf's head. It was an energy that did not need to struggle or want for anything. It knew that whatever it needed, it could manifest if required. Has everything that she needs. Instead of the bird of prey, we have a powerful wolf. Here we have the sweet Ten of Earth, sharing things on to the next generation, which we have there. We have, I really like this Page of Earth. Again, very useful, but she is working with her energy. The Knight is interesting because she almost seems like she is trapped. I'm sure that's not what's going on here. The Knight of Earth lives in the deep old-growth forest where the land is humid and lush. It is her job to slowly break down the fallen trees and those animals who have passed and incorporate them into the soil where they will be reborn. It is a long, slow process, but her dedication, I love that. So it's the slow-moving energy of the earth to bring about the decay that is needed in a forest. I love it. Here we have the beautiful Queen of Earth. I do love her. And the powerful Queen or Elder of Earth with the eyes. So yes, I am going to say that those are eyes on her shirt because we have eyes. And we also have eyes up in the air, actually. And down here as well. Yeah. So definitely all of the elders having eyes within them, which I think is powerful. Like they're fully, their third eyes are it's not very good English, are fully open and manifested. We also have, let's see if it says anything about it. We have 4 symbols. It doesn't say, you know, I wish that there was some message, you know, about what these are. I think that looks to be like a Triskel energy of some sort. This is definitely Nordic, Norse symbol that you'll see a lot. So my assumption is that these are also symbols that you might actually be symbols, but I think it would be nice to have that information, because they do stand out as being there, where you don't see those in the other ones, only in the elders. Okay, I know we are well over my normal long. I will just say that this is the same cardstock that are in her other decks, and it is thin and in a good way and riffles really well. It is satin, not glossy, just has a sheen to it, but it is not glossy. And the only negative I can say is that it's slippy. I have, with Guardians of the Night, a few times dumped them everywhere because they are larger cards. They're taller and wider than a traditional tarot size, so they are quite a handful. And they are a little bit slippy. I'm not sure because they're not high gloss, but that's the best I can say, is that they are slippy. But they do riffle really well, and they do overhand really well. So it's just one of those things you have to be aware of and keep your keep a hold of the deck. But let me just lay out real quick, just so that you can see. It's just very rich. It's very beautiful colors. I love that card. I really like the Council of Monarchs as well. Love that Sun card. So you can just, just to get an idea of it laid out. Again, I know I'm like way or well over my time. But I just wanted you to see them at least pulled out. Energetically, from my readings I've done for myself, and just walking through it, it feels very active. It does not feel receptive. I know it's all females in there, but it's not like a nurturing on that side of that energy. It feels very active oriented. Each of the cards seems to be enacting what it needs to be done. It feels empowering, and it feels action. Do this, don't do this kind of feel. And I know I'm doing a great job. It is very large, and this, again, I've worked with this deck, so thankfully it's thin, or else it would be much harder to deal with, to get your hands around them to get them shuffled. But they do riffle real well, and again, if you're an overhander, other than it being a big grip, they overhand really nicely. But I did want to just say, I think I'm going to play around with this a little bit. There's a lot of crows in this deck, and we have that whole part in the Suit of Fire where they're opening up the gate between the worlds, and you can see sort of the human world there. And I do feel like this could be really interesting together. I use the Crow Tarot and Guardian of the Night together a lot. I use Guardians of the Night as an animal oracle, but I have a feeling that I will be working with these two decks together, because I think that it might be interesting to pair them up. I've only read this by itself, so I can't tell you, but I got a sense that these two decks are going to play well together, and I'm looking forward to working with them in that manner. So here you have it, a look. Again, I ordered this on a pre-order, so I've been waiting for it to be done and come out and all that, although she is very on target with all her decks releases. But I'm pretty sure, I'm 99% sure that she had ordered more decks, and that these are still available, at least at the time that I'm putting this out. And she tends to keep, she'll do reprintings and things like that, so I don't foresee this not being available anytime soon if you're watching this now or later in the future. So I hope that you've enjoyed this walkthrough with me, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.